And what's going on, guys? Alex here, and today I'd like to discuss with you such subject as how COVID has killed productivity, at least for me. Talking about how COVID has killed productivity, it's important to say that I don't mean that actual COVID disease as it is, because I have recently catched COVID myself. I don't mean that COVID has killed productivity for the time when I was really sick. I mean by that COVID has ruined experience from studying, has ruined some productivity in work, in studies, and so on. And also, of course, post-COVID syndrome, it had hit me hard with fatigue, sore throat, and headaches. But still, today's subject is more about how pandemic impacted our daily life and productivity in the first place. So if we're talking about COVID, then I suppose that's important to make a little throwback in time. So by that I mean that the COVID started like 2-3 years ago, and for all of this time, for almost all of this time, all of the studies and the work, as far as it could be, has transferred to the distant type of studying and distant type of working. And it has really impacted lots of spheres of life. And right here I'd like to talk about my personal experience with how COVID has impacted my productivity, and spoiler alert, but it has not improved my experience in studying and work. But still, there are also some pluses, because I have started this podcast and I have started a YouTube channel because of the COVID, because I have had lots of free time, and that's why it was possible for me to start something like that. But anyway, talking about distant learning. Distant learning is a very hard topic, and I have talked about it already in some episodes before, that distant type of learning, it impacted not the best way studying itself, and the study quality doesn't improve by distant learning. But why is it? I have concluded that there are some factors which really impacted, which COVID has really impacted for distant learning. For example, less time is spent for studying despite of lots of spare time from the absence of the commute. And that's a really absurd thing, because in theory you should study more, because you have obviously more time, because you don't have to commute like 1 hour to the university or to any facility you need to go to, and 1 hour to go back, and so you feel less fatigued by the end of the day, you feel less tired. But the absurd of the situation is that you actually spend less time studying, because the bed is really close to you, because you are studying from home, and because the environment you're in is usual environment where you are like having rest. And that's why that's a very big problem for me personally, because despite the fact that I don't have to spend 2 hours for commute to the university and back, but still, despite of this fact, I have spent less time studying, especially in my first year of the COVID pandemic. Because during my first year, all I have done is I have done completely nothing for studies, because I was like staying at home. I was like, okay, like I will stay at home and nothing will happen, like what the hell, why I should change anything. And that's why that's pretty absurd. But still, let's go next. The next thing is that it's easier to pass lots of examinations, lots of tests, and so on a distant learning. And by here I don't mean only cheating, but of course cheating is here like the most obvious thing to talk about, because it's far easier to cheat when you're sitting in your home environment, and when you can prepare an environment for yourself with lots of tables, papers around you, so like you can think of something. But I don't mean only that, because before that, if we're talking at least about medical faculty, here I mean that we have such thing as colloquies, and colloquies, these are like tests, but it usually have been in a speaking form. So you're like talking to your professor, you're talking to your teacher, and during this talk, like professor asks you questions, like open ones, so it's not a multi-choice test. But if we're talking about studying, like whether it was during the COVID time, if we're talking about studying like on a distant studying and distant learning and distant tests, over here the only thing the professors could think about, which is the most obvious choice to be honest, that is to have a multi-choice test. And as far as I'm concerned, as far as I know, multi-choice tests are much easier to pass than such colloquies, because during such colloquies the thing which is actually tested is how well do you know the subject and how well can you orient around the subject, you personally. But if we're talking about tests, the only thing which is tested over there, the only thing that's tested is how well you can pass the test and how well you actually choose which answer is most probably the correct one. Because over here you have like multi-choice answers, mostly it's 4 or 5, and that's why it's much easier. But here we also meet another problem, that some teachers, some professors, some doctors in our medical faculty, when we're talking about propedeutics or the physical examination, as it is, the thing is that these doctors tended to make these tests a little bit harder, and they have made it a little bit harder, but not a little bit. They have simply made the test that way that for correct answer you get +1 point, for incorrect answer, so for wrong answer, you get -1 point. And so by that, like if you will have like 60% of the correct answers and you have answered 60% correct, then you will get only 20%. So the percentage will be much lower because 40% of this 60 will be incorrect. And so by doing that, they have really made it too hard. And that's why I find that distance learning was very, very bad idea. But okay, I understand why it should be done, but still, the thing is that it will be either too easy to pass or too hard to pass, because obviously if you know material for 60%, it's like very, very good, especially if we're talking about medical faculty. But still, here like you will get only 20%. So talking about the next point is that because of the distance learning and distance learning, you're like learning, like studying from home, you are very too close to bed, and that's a very big problem for me personally, because my bed is like, I can reach my bed with my hand right now, and I'm recording the podcast right now, so obviously it's very, very close. And the thing is that because the bed is too close, sometimes if it's not needed to turn on the cameras for the lecture or for class, sometimes you're like, okay, I will just have some sleep, like I will take a nap, I will listen for the lecture, like when I will lie down and listen to the lecture, and obviously you will fall asleep after or during the lecture. And that's not only a problem because you can the attendance of the lecture cannot be counted for you, and you can be made to make some type of project because you was absent during the lecture or some class. The problem here is that you really need to understand that subject. It's in the first place, the class is in the first place is made for the students. And right here, like you are not understanding the subject, you are not trying to understand the subject because you're lying down, you're like scrolling through TikTok, you're scrolling through Instagram, you're sleeping, and that's why you don't get the useful information which you really need to know, because obviously I'm studying medicine, and lots of things, like the most things we're studying here, of course there are some exceptions, but still lots of things are very important, and most things are very important if we're talking about medicine. And that's why lots of lectures, lots of classes I needed to hear, and I needed to listen for them once again, because some of the lectures were recorded, so thanks to that professors, thanks for that opportunity, but still I need to rehear this lecture, and so I was spending like this time unproductively, because what's the idea of sleeping during the lecture and rehearing the lecture later, because I want to sleep every single day, every single time, every single hour. That's like That's me. That's simply me. That's simply my diagnosis, and that's my problem. That I want to sleep whenever I can sleep, and when I cannot sleep, I want to have a sleep. I want to have a nap or to lie down. So that's actually the problem. And sleeping during lectures is a very big problem, and a very big problem not only for me, because a lot of my course mates, lots of my friends were actually also sleeping or doing their things during the distant learning, because obviously they have such opportunity, so why not to use it? Also, the problem was that at first, when COVID appeared in our life and when distant learning were presented for us, it was a very big chaos in our life. It was a very big chaos for our study process, because no one was ready to start working online. And from my personal experience, the first month after the first lockdown in Latvia, in my country, after the first month, everything has stopped for a month. Like nothing was happening for a month. Like no classes, no lectures, nothing, because like doctors, professors, everyone was hoping that after 1 month it will go away, but obviously it won't, and it have not gone away. And here was the problem, that we should find the time in order to study the material which we were not studying during this month. And if we're talking about medicine, it's lots of information, because during 1 week we can learn like a lot of information, like ridiculously huge amount. And right now, like, extrapolate it to 1 month, and so you will understand that that's really dumb, and that was really chaos. And because of that, of course, the quality of the studies, the quality of the education itself suffered very much, and my quality of education as well, because of course I was very lazy, and of course I wouldn't prefer to study when there is an opportunity to lie down and have a nap, but still, the problem was it. Also, if we're talking about distant work, I haven't succeeded with distant work, because at first, when I was working at the Evolution Gaming, it was like online casino. When I was working there were no type of distant work, because it was no opportunity, because I was a game presenter, and right now I am working as a medical assistant in the ICU, so obviously at the hospital, and here is also very hard to implement distant learning. But right now I'd like to talk to you about distant work from the perspective of people who were working in the distant way, and how it impacted them, and how we can see it in some of the results. Here also can be extrapolated to the study process, some of it as well, but still, let's begin. The thing is that there is no separation between study and working space for most people, and for leisure and free time space, and that's why people tend to procrastinate more. Right here I can make an example, because I am studying at my desk. I am like having a good time, like gaming at my desk. I am watching films at my desk. I'm studying. I am doing some hobbies like YouTube, podcast, and so on. Everything from the one space, and that's why this space is not associated with something productive for all of the time, for example, as it is a library at the university. And the same can be applied for lots of people who were working from home. For example, lots of IT guys, lots of programmers, and so on, from different types of industries, for example, gaming industry. They were procrastinating more simply because they didn't have like a separate space in their apartment in order to work just there. And that's why they were working from the same space that they were gaming like 2 minutes after the work was kind of done. Also, the problem which I have heard about, and which I can also extrapolate to studies, is that it's harder to communicate on a distant way. And by that I don't mean that also it's harder to send an email, because of course in-person meeting and talk will be much more productive, and you can explain it much better than simply describing it all in a long email. And lots of people are like getting lots of emails from lots of people, from lots of others, co-workers, students, professors, and so on, and that's why it's becoming much harder to work with this information. And that's why we see such bad examples, for example, from the same gaming industry from the year 2021, from the AAA projects such as Battlefield 2042 and GTA Trilogy and so on, from Call of Duty as well, when the results are very, very bad, and because it's lack of communication, because people are procrastinating more, and because everything is doing not so good as it was at the office. Because obviously if you are studying or working in the office, it's much easier for you to communicate with some other departments, because you can simply walk a couple of meters, couple of feet, and you will get to the other department, and you can ask everything, and you can understand information much better than it can be done by a simple email or even like a Zoom meeting. Because of course Zoom meetings, and everyone already hates Zoom meetings, because it's like the same meeting as it was before, but right now you're sitting from home and you're not understanding what's going on, why it's going on, and you're tend to spend more time procrastinating even during these meetings. So that's a very big problem. So anyway, continuing to the next thing is that me and COVID is, first of all, I have recently, very recently, have caught a COVID, obviously, and I'm well now. It wasn't very hard, but still, finally, 3 years, almost 3 years in this end, and I have already catched that. That's pretty good result for me. Also, for me personally, it was same as for the others, harder to study from home, because of course, obviously, as I said before, bed was too close for me. I tend to spend more time in bed than usual, not only because I don't have to commute, so that's why I don't have to wake up 2-3 hours before the first lecture, because I can wake up like 5 minutes before the lecture and connect it already. So not only because of that I was spending more time, not only because of depression, but also because I had more time, more free time, and I wasn't using it properly because of the factors which I have talked about before. And because of it, the problem was that I was spending all of this free time which I could spend for anything productive, I was spending it simply lying down and sleeping. Also, talking about depression, I have depression hit me harder than it was before, and I had pretty big depressive episodes, so the treatment was changed multiple times, and distance learning for me personally didn't help. It didn't help at all, because I know some Canadian scientists have found out that the amount of depressive episodes has decreased for the population of Canada for some type of region. But for me personally, it looks like I'm an exception, because it hit me harder, because it was for me much harder to do anything from home, not only because of procrastination, but also because of the depressive episodes which have transferred into procrastination as well. So that's why it was harder. Also, important thing, at least as I have understood it for me, is that the lack of communication and socialization. My apologies, it's very, very late already. I'm recording it in the night when it's 9-10 p.m. already, so that's why I'm a little bit tired, but still. Lack of communication and socialization is that I couldn't see any other people than my family in months. And that was a very big problem, because, like, of course, my family are pretty adequate people, but the problem was that there were no other people to talk to, because I know these people. I was spending lots of time at home even before, and right now, when I was when I was used to talking with others people, with my course mates, with my friends, right now I had to spend lots of time at home, and I wasn't seeing others people for a very long period of time, and that was also doesn't help neither for the depressive episodes, but nor for my happiness at all, because obviously I like talking to people at least during some time of during the day. Also, during the second wave of the COVID, I wasn't working at all, and that's why it was very bad for me, because lack of communication, because I wasn't working, I wasn't communicating even with someone who I could communicate before as my workmates, colleagues, and even these people I couldn't talk to, because I wasn't working for almost whole year. Also, problem was that gyms were closed, so I was too lazy to use other opportunities such as working out at home, from home, and the gyms were closed. And here also I can say once again about the importance of the environment, because we need to have environment to work at, to study at, to have a good time, or like gaming at, watching films at, working out at, because it's very hard to be done from closed space, from one space, everything, because in theory it can be done, but as we see from the psychology of people, it's much harder to be done, and that also can be applied to gyms, because gyms were closed, I wasn't working out, and it didn't only impacted my how I look, but also it impacted my health, and it impacted my depressive episodes as well, because obviously, as I know already right now, gym and working out obviously helps me, and I feel much better after working out. Also, mystery for me how I have passed last year at university, because I have spent lots of time procrastinating. I wasn't doing very well during my studies, but still somehow I have passed that year, and that's a very big mystery for me personally. And right now it looks much harder for me to have an offline lecture than before, because for the latest 2 years it was only a decent type of learning, and I was having lots of time procrastinating, but right now when I need to go somewhere in order to have some type of lecture, it's much harder, because right now I'm thinking about that maybe I don't need that, maybe I won't go there, because and this type of ideas and this type of thoughts, I don't find that, because before there was no such opportunity as study from home when I was during my first and second year of the medical school. And right now I have such opportunity, because I know that such opportunity exists in theory, and right now it's much harder to go offline and to go somewhere at the hospital, to go somewhere at the university facilities in order to have some lectures. Also, the problem which I have noticed for myself personally is that cult of productivity hit me hard, and that I was pushing myself sometimes over the limits. And of course you can see my YouTube channel. I have left all of the videos from that productivity type of episode from my life, because it seemed that it's the right choice to be productive during the whole day, during every single minute of every single day. And cult of productivity, that's obviously will be the next subject for the podcast, the next episode. And the cult of productivity is actually, it's a good thing in theory, but in practice it's a very bad thing, because I tended not to listen to myself. I didn't implement healthy and useful habits, and I was trying to go with the big steps towards my goal, and that's why that was not the right tactics to go to and to use, and that's why I understand right now, obviously 1 year after it was happening, that I need to try to listen more to myself. I need to try to implement healthy and useful habits with tiny steps, so very, very slowly, because if I was trying to implement something with a big steps, like try to quit smoking, try to start running, and try to start healthy eating at the same time, it wasn't working, because it would be much harder, and that's obviously much harder from the psychological point of view, but still, that was the problem. So what I have understood from all of this time when I was with this code of productivity is that I need to implement 5 simple habits into my life, and I'm planning on doing that during this year and maybe even the next year. I don't know how far will it go, but the thing is that I will try to wake up depending on my to-do list and depending on how tired I am, and not to wake up like at 5 a.m. because it's like a right thing to do, and because it looks like it looks better on the video. Also, the next thing is a very important one, is planning beforehand. That planning beforehand will help both you and me, because I am implementing that right now. I'm planning beforehand the next day in the evening, the day before, and it actually helps on structuring your day, on planning your day beforehand, and that's why you wake up and you already know what to do, and you don't think like, what I need to do right now, because I don't know the fuck what's going on. Anyway, the next thing is that trying to implement healthy habits one at a time, because as I said before, if I was trying to implement lots of habits at the same time, it wasn't working and I was failing every single one of them. That's why one habit at a time, and take as much time as I need in order for this habit to stick. Of course, there are a very good book which I was talking about lots of time with, that Atomic Habits, talking actually about how habits works and how to implement good ones and how to get rid of the bad ones. But still, the thing is that I really recommend this book, and I will try to implement only one habit at a time, and I will reread this book and follow the advices from this book. Also, next thing which I will implement in my life, and which I'm already implementing in my life, is to spend more time doing sports, because obviously for me it helps, and gym for me is a very useful, very good thing, not only for my appearance, but also it really helps with my mental health. It helps me being sane, it helps me to be happy more than usual, and that's why I will highly recommend for every single one of them, every single one of you, to find some type of sports which you really enjoy doing. It shouldn't be only gym, it shouldn't be only running. If you like hiking, go hiking. If you enjoy swimming, do it. Simply find some type of physical activity which you enjoy doing, because physical activity obviously helps, especially if we are talking about the situation we are right now, when there are lockdowns, when there are some type of distant, offline, online learning, studying, working, and so on. Especially for people who were usually used to working at the office, they should understand me, because when you are sitting at home playing games or watching Netflix, and when you are sitting at work in front of the computer, the thing which really helps is to change the thing which you are doing. So obviously to try to do something physical, so some type of physical activity, even gardening also some type of physical activity. It helps for some types of people, not for me, but for some types of people it helps. So find the thing which really works for you. Also, I'm planning on spending more time communicating with other people, because socialization obviously matters, especially for my mental health, because I not always like to be in between people. I don't always enjoy having like long conversations, but I need this type of conversations, because that was actually one of the ideas before I started the podcast. It was one of the ideas that I will start the podcast just in order for me to talk through the things which pop up in my head, and that's why I will write them down. I will talk about it with some type of audience, because obviously I don't have a very big audience right now, but I will talk with these people, and by talking simply with these virtual people through this podcast, I can free my head, and it's some type of socialization for me. Also, right now, let's continue with the list of how COVID obviously impacted my health, how it impacted me. is that financial troubles, of course, despite the fact that I don't need to spend lots of time commuting and eating out because of the studies, despite it also financial problems still exist, and I still have them. I'm getting rid of it very slowly, with very little steps, but still not the most pleasant thing to deal with. Also more stress because distant studies, because procrastination and all of the facts which I have talked before. And also it's harder to contact other people at school and the medical school, because professors are having much more emails than usual, and that's why to get a response from them, even something like "okay, I get it," even these 3 words, it's much harder to get right now. But still, I suppose that's the whole list of how COVID has killed my productivity. I hope that my experience will help some of you, and also ranking this podcast and liking it in the YouTube will be very much appreciated. Stay safe and hear you next week.